Hello and welcome. My question today is for male readers. Have you ascended yet? In other words, are you enthralled to the looksmaxxing movement? So this week I'm getting into the bizarre world of male looksmaxxing and the concept of being handsome by design. To be honest, if you're not in your late teens or early 20s, and typically male, it's unlikely, not impossible. I understand there's no absolute entry criteria to the looksmaxxing milieu, but I'm sorry, if you're not in your late teens or early 20s and typically male, you're probably past it and wouldn't be welcome. Anyway, looksmaxxing isn't new, but it's relatively new to me, and it seems to have broken out of its online echo chamber into the mainstream. That is, the commentariat has been taking notice. But if you have no idea what I'm talking about, you might want to pay attention to your sons or grandsons when they start using words like ascending in a non-spiritual sense. Mogging, that is, outclassing the people around you. Mogwalks, that's getting out and about to outclass the people around you, perhaps helped along by a mate who films the odd reactions of the people you pass. Then there's mewing. Mewing is the practice of pressing your tongue to the roof of your mouth to supposedly reshape and accentuate your jaw. And finally, they might also be reaching for the retatritide. Retatritide is very difficult to say. It doesn't exactly trip off the tongue. Talk about mewing. Retatritide. Anyway, it's a new fat loss aid, which is all the rage in the looksmaxxing world. So we all know the benefits that accrue to good looks aren't new. Historically, vanity's always been top of the pops, and there have always been toxic traditions to help people achieve it. We also know the DNA gods don't play fair in their distribution of handsomeness and physical perfection. I imagine most young dudes since the beginning of time have stood in front of anything reflective ahead of a date, like Narcissus looking at his reflection in a pond, wishing their jaw was a little squarer, their shoulders just that little bit broader, their hair perhaps a little less mousy or greasy. And please, why could I not have been given a couple of extra inches? I'm talking height, of course, here. Women seeking advantage have gone to extreme lengths over the eons to pursue whatever ideal beauty was in vogue at the time, and many of these fashions were unhealthy, if not actually life-threatening. I'm thinking of the highly toxic Venetian cerise, or white lead, that Elizabeth I clarted on her face, and this was to look semi-divine and timeless, but actually also to hide smallpox scars. But extended use of Venetian cerise could cause skin discoloration, decay and rotting, hair loss, muscle paralysis and lead poisoning. Another example of the extent women will go to become beautiful is when 16th century affluent Italian and Spanish women used belladonna, Yup, that's deadly nightshade, to dilate their pupils and achieve the dreamy look that was trendy at the time. The drops were highly poisonous and could cause hallucinations, blurred vision and death, and quite a few other things actually along the way. But what price beauty? Today, young men mirror this desperation using steroid injections and bone lengthening to increase their sexual market value, SMV. Yup, SMV, it's a thing. But with looksmaxxing, apparently the name of the game is to ascend to masculine perfection, to become as sexy as fuck, to paraphrase the movement's leaders. But so the looksmaxxers, it's an online community that believes male attractiveness is the elixir of worldly success, and that male worth is entirely based on appearances. To achieve the perfection they seek, they use steroid injections, bone lengthening, surgery, severe dieting, and self-inflicted bone trauma, and many more, what can I say, therapies. Now, one of the big goals is to carry minimal body fat, so you reveal the underlying bone structure. But there's a spectrum of ascension, believe it or not. Unsurprisingly, different levels of looksmaxxing exist. So firstly, there are the soft looksmaxxers, and these are the majority who sit in the middle ground and simply want to look and feel as good as they can. At this level, looksmaxxing is just another word for self-improvement. Then at the other end, there are the heavy looksmaxxers. These are the people who are okay with surgery and other interventions like cheek fills, but are a bit hesitant about smashing anything. Then we've got, finally, the top end of the real hardcore people are the bone smashers. And bone smashers believe that hammering your face bones stimulates growth, and they're up for any manner of invasive, heavy-duty structural alterations. And these guys really are the extreme end of the spectrum, and some of them have already apostatized criticised because it can lead to very dark places, if not to self-harm. But okay, so who's evangelising for this movement? The high priests of perfection, if you like. So I read an article by Joseph Bernstein a few weeks ago, Handsome at Any Cost, which I've used in my title, featuring the top of the pantheon, Braden Peters, or Clavicular as he's known. This piqued my curiosity. According to Bernstein, Clavicular, who's 20, or Clav for short, has emerged as a beacon for a group of narcissistic, self-obsessed young men. His aim is to take looksmaxxing mainstream. Be very afraid. But if Clavicular is an advocate for extreme enhancements, Swedish model Johan Drumev is more of a poster boy for the softer approach. He's a looksmaxxing coach, but one who's aware of the risks of botched procedures. Drumev, who's actually a whole year older at 21, believes in looking good in a more natural way. And here's, I'll put at the end of it, his version is on his Jaw Hacks podcast. So, the new NADSAT, the speak of looksmaxxers, has been compared to the fictional NADSAT spoken by the marauding gang of youths in Anthony Burgess's A Clockwork Orange. NADSAT was a mashup of Cockney rhyming slang, Russian substantives, German and made-up words. In NADSAT, friends were droogs, men were vax, Tolchek meant a blow or a pushover, glazies were eyes, and you didn't watch or see, you vidied everything. Even God got a makeover to bog. So, beauty at any cost. That was really, that's my main question. And it saddens me to think that looksmaxxers believe that any step they take towards male beauty, however extreme, is virtuous. There was a time not so long ago when virtue was defined as morally excellent behaviour, character or goodness, the opposite of vice in fact. Virtue in life can mean reaching one's potential or achieving the highest level of skill through dedication and perseverance, such as becoming a top scientist or an elite athlete. In that sense, looksmaxxing could be considered a virtue if a person's highest skill is enhancing their looks. But virtue in its older meaning implies adding something to the sum value of human knowledge or experience, not just primping. And it's part of a brutal economy of the swipe. From what I've heard, today's dating market is brutally judgmental when it comes to looks. There's the idea that some men will never be able to compete because it's not a level playing field. The simple act of genetics separates the winners from the losers in this world. They see that girls are on the hunt increasingly and ruling out guys who don't have the perfect square jawline and other physical attributes that the looksmaxxers strive for. But equally, the claviculars of the world say they quantify dating in terms of return on their investment. How premeditated can you get? I mean, I'm so glad I'm not in the online dating bear pit these days, and I do find it all a bit tragic. It just seems so calculating. A standard of beauty set by influencers seeking swipes and algorithmic advantage. I mean, these guys have underlying bone structures and physiognomy to achieve the standards they set, with a bit of help from their plastic surgeon or whatever. But many young men will never reach that state, no matter how much money, time, effort and pain they invest. I mean, let's face it, not all women have what it takes to be models. But insecure young men watch and listen. Perhaps if they just smash a cheekbone here or there, fill a chin there, or drop a massive amount of weight to excavate those all-important bone structure, life will be sweet. But is it a mirage, this final adjustment? What happens when the bone structure revealed doesn't conform to expectations? When a procedure is botched, and we all know that happens, when nothing is enough and self-loathing becomes the default setting? Like anorexics, who are never thin enough to their own eyes, some looksmaxxers will struggle to know when to stop. A kid might feel different or unattractive or decide they're unpopular because of how they look. The risk for the looksmaxxer, like the anorexic, like the people already addicted to cosmetic surgery, is it becomes a treadmill where nothing is ever enough in a gamified world where every little improvement is taken online for critiquing. Just one more thing and perfection will be achieved. Another micro adjustment is all it will take for their beauty dreams to come true. It never is. They never are. So it used to be said, vanity, thy name is woman. Well, not anymore. I get vanity vanity. I'm quite vain, in fact. I was lucky enough, I think, to have been born into a relatively attractive container. I enjoy the performative aspects of achieving a look, and I'm completely in favour of maxing what I've been given. But I've never felt tempted to move into the realms of tweakments or surgery. At some point I drew a line in the sand I was comfortable with and haven't crossed it. Clothes, accessories, hair, makeup, skincare, exercise, diet, they're all fair game. But everyone's different and basically whatever spins your dial. Perhaps if I were in a different profession where I'm constantly in the public eye, or if I had loads of money, I'd feel differently. Or if I was generally unhappy with my looks on some fundamental level, I'd have found a way to make a change. I'm not inclined to lob the old comfort of beauty's on the inside at anyone. While some of it is, the container itself does have currency. Life isn't always fair on so many levels, but abandoning the quest for inner beauty in the interest of attaining superficial perfection seems to push the scales too far in the other direction. The looks maxes in many ways just represent what every person knows. Youth and beauty are bankable commodities, but that doesn't mean there is nothing else of value and that happiness can't be found for those of us who fall short of perceived perfection. The cost in entry to that club just seems too high. So what do you reckon? Should we pursue beauty at any cost?